205. Yeah.
Good reason to know those.
Right, so thank you for having me here tonight. So my name is Adam Bullard. I'm the principal at Nobleboro Central School, which makes me the de facto director of the Center for Alternative Learning, because that's where it's located. It's also referred to as CAL, so you might hear referred to as CAL. I'm kind of start off the presentation by just looking at the picture here. So this picture was taken at the Apprentice Shop in Rockland, Maine last year. These were students that were in the program last year. Some of them were in this year, and we've got some teachers there and some adults. And so this was a program that our students at Cal participated in at the Apprentice Shop Boathouse, where they built that toboggan from scratch. And they even bent the wood on a steamer to get that curve there. So this was a program that we began last year. It was an 8 or 9 week program, and it culminated with a experience at the Camden Snow Bowl for the U.S. Toboggan Nationals. So students were able to participate in that, like at the end of the year. And so this was just kind of like one of the experiences, just that like to kind of highlight of like what's some that experience that students would have in the program. And unfortunately, I just saw a picture today, like their boat house, right, that they're in, that's right on the harbor in Rockland, and it did get damaged pretty badly. But I think we have already offered up our kids to kind of help rebuild the shop that they were building the toboggan in. They're doing it again this year. We have another toboggan. We're gonna have another crew that's gonna go down the mountain and hoping to get back in swinging things soon. As you all saw, the damage throughout all the coastal communities is pretty significant. And I have another story related to this picture. Someone at the end of that, it's Toboggan National. Somebody in the parking lot offered the group $1,000 for the toboggan. That's the kind of the rate that they go at. There's so much work that goes into them, and it's really crafted pretty beautifully. We have it hanging up in the hallway of here. So just want to tell you about like the overarching like mission of the program. So Cal is engaging middle level students by providing authentic skill building learning experiences in a supportive and personalized environment. I'm not going to read that whole piece about Cal there, but basically it's been around in the district for quite some time. I don't have the exact like date that came about, but it used to be located at Central office. And at some point it moved to Nobleboro, but like all alt-ed programs, they're created out of a need for students that need to have learning in a different traditional outside of a traditional classroom setting. It's not a special ed program. It's still considered a regular ed program. So, but there are students that benefit from an alternative experience. And I've been to an alt-ed conference last year, and there's lots of different types of programs that are out there, and like lots of different missions and visions. And there aren't too many middle school programs around, but we do. Ours is middle school, of course. But ours is. I'd like to focus on kind of like the 3 pillars that I call it. That's kind of that make up the Cal experience. The first of which being that authentic learning experience that goes back to the picture of the apprentice shop and what the students did there. This picture here off the left here, that is students that are working on a Habitat for Humanity house. And they built those stairs in one day. They went to the site, and the site manager was there and was kind of complaining like, oh, I need to get these stairs done. We need to get in and out of the basement. And so the kids, there was one student that was there that day. He was like, well, I built stairs with like my family before, and like was able to kind of go to it. And so the kids were really felt accomplished coming back to school that day. Like, hey, they did something, they built something, and that's the experience that they're never going to forget. So since then, we've gone to Habitat a few more times, and alternating with the apprentice shop in Rockland 1 week go to the apprentice shop, next week do the habitat work. And there's a lot of houses right now being built in Rockland and Rockland Habitat program. So authentic learning is just, project based, something they're doing something experiential. It's an experience, place based, like keeping it connected to like our mid-coast community. And sometimes, and a lot of times, there's a community service aspect to this. And so, of course, Habitat for Humanity is like, they do great work. The kids won't forget that. The second pillar that I just want to talk about is the acquisition of knowledge and skills. Like with any educational program, we still want kids to come out of it like knowing some things, learning some things. And so, students that are in this program, they're still working on math, they're still working on reading, and they're still working on core subjects that they would have in a traditional class. But sometimes it's might be connected to what they're experiencing in the community, and other times it might not be. Students that are in the program, this gets asked a lot, like how much are they in classes with regular, traditional setting. So if there's an 8th grade student that's in Cal, they still participate with all the other 8th grade students in the special. So all the 8th graders in the program go to 8th grade gym, or they go to 8th grade health, or they go to 8th grade, they go to art. So they're still participating in those same specials. Based on their grading. So I put on life skills, and not necessarily life skills as a special ed program, but life skills like life skills that people need to be, to be an adult, cooking and stuff like that. So we have programs where I'm partnering with farms at the Y to working on cooking skills and whatnot. There's certainly a lot of like organizational, executive function, and work habits type experiences. And a lot of the students that come to Cal, kind of struggle with some of those parts of traditional classroom. And so being in an alternative ed setting with smaller groups and like a little more one-on-one support, like really helping kids build those skills to gain some more independence. And then of course, helping students with building social emotional skills and competencies, like understanding their emotions and understanding like what's like tripping them up like during the day, like helping them work through those challenges so that they can move on with the day. And then the third pillar, just being super supportive and personalized. So we have a low teacher to student ratio. So right this year, max of 10 students with the 2 teachers. And next year we'll bump that up to 12. We have integrated student support systems. We're just getting like more data on students, like they fill out some self-reflection forms just to give us an idea of like how they view themselves as learners and as how they view their emotional state. We have our social worker and my guidance counselor in the building. They obviously are working with all the students in our building, but they really spend a good amount of time with our Cal students as well. They see them at least weekly, and then they do lots of individual work with the students as well. Students, have a personalized learning plan. And then one thing that I'd like to implement for next year is mentoring opportunities. And so I've had a lot of experience with an organization called Trekkers, which follows students multiple years on it's a mentoring program. I'd like to have students that have been in Cal in previous years at Lincoln Academy come back to the middle school, come back to Noblesboro and work with the Cal kids. And one of the things that I got the idea around that from was I heard that there wasn't an alt-ed program at Lincoln Academy for freshmen and sophomore and students. And so the question is, well, what happens to the Cal kids when they go to Lincoln Academy? I was like, well, I don't know, but I can't really do anything about that, but I can invite them back to help us with the students that we have. So if we go to Habitat or if we go to the apprentice shop, we will be inviting like students on those trips to like teach them what they learned in previous years, but also be the help be a mentor for the younger students. So that's in the works for next year. So those are like the 3 overarching pillars, I would say, of the program that kind of make it special and unique. And this having a smaller group of students and kind of like a blank slate of of what you can do with them allows us to have like many different types of, many partners, community partners, to help, keep students engaged and you know, bought into what they're doing. You know, a lot of times students are referred to the program because they're just, you know, they're completely capable, but they don't see the point of it. They're checked out. They don't want to do it. Or some kids just need a change in scenery. They don't like, they want to be around a different group of kids, and some students just switching from multiple middle level teachers is just not the thing for them. They want to be with like one teacher like, for the whole day. But when you have that smaller setting and you have like a little more flexibility, you can do some of these other really cool things. Like we partner with Coastal Rivers, and most of the schools in our district do stuff with Coastal Rivers, but they work with our students every 2 weeks, and they're working on upgrading a trail that's on our property. Hardy Roots is an organization that works with students in our communities, and they work with our group, our Cal group, once a week. I've already mentioned the apprentice shop, and that's in Rockland. The Darling Marine Center that's going to be starting up in next March, a new program that we're going to be working with our students with on Fridays. Of course, Habitat for Humanity, we do stuff with Cave, and just some other organizations that we either like go do trips with or engage with. The MAC came up because on the days that students go to Rockland for Habitat for Apprentice Shop, they're missing their gym class. I think it's the 8th grade. And so like, well, how can we get that? We don't want the, like, no kid wants to miss their PE class. So like, well, the MAC's on the way back to Northborough, so let's see what they have there. And they open up their doors to us, and so kids are able to, you know, jump around on the mats and stuff like that before they come back to school. So we try to fill in whatever they're missing. And then you know, people ask like, who comes to Cal? And I kind of touched upon it a little bit. You know, it's a variety of reasons. There's not just one particular student that is going to benefit from Cal. Like I said, sometimes they're just not engaged or motivated to do the work or meet the expectations of a traditional classroom setting. And other times they feel disconnected to their peers and staff just because of circumstances or past experiences or just limited social emotional skills. And some students just need that change of scenery. So it depends. It could be a variety of all three of those together. It's not a behavior program like some people like would ask, like, oh, is it intended for kids that have like really intense behavioral needs? And it's not. It's, you know, there's certainly kids that come to the program and exhibit behaviors, but most middle school students do. But it's not necessarily a behavior program, and it's not a special ed program. But we do have students that have IEPs that are in the program. Whenever, if a student does have an IEP and they come to our school, then our special ed case managers work with them, give them their specialized instruction that they have required from their IEPs. So I won't read what's on the parent feedback, but before I started doing these presentations at these meetings, I just reached out to the parents and like, just let me know, like, tell me like what you feel about the Cal program, like what are your thoughts, and you know, what would you like me to tell people about the program? And you know, every parent was, you know, it was a combination of like, you know, my kid is so engaged now, they look forward to like those, you know, the Friday trips, you know, so it keeps them motivated. Like now they feel like they, you know, happy to come to school, like they feel connected to their group. They're just really happy with the program. And I think it's, you know, it was designed to be a place to meet the needs of students that their needs weren't being met at whatever school they're at for whatever reason. And it's the ability to meet those students where they're at, to meet their needs. That's the reason why I think people are always like so appreciative of like what we can do, just because of the number of students, the amount of like attention and care we can put into their program. And I can answer any questions if people have any questions about it, but that's Cal in a nutshell. And you know, I feel really, it's one of the things I love most about being the principal at Northborough is having that in my building and being able to, you know, play in the sandbox a little bit with the kids, like they're, you know, figuratively, like, what do you want to learn? What do you want to do? What are you interested in? Let's make that happen. So in the, you know, the money that's in our budget allows us to like find out what these students are interested in and what they want to do and like make that happen. And you know, and to do it in a really supportive way.
Thank you. Can you turn the lights back up? Any questions?
Yes. So do the students have to meet any of the main learning results? And is their report cards the same as the other students' report cards?
Yeah, same report cards. They're graded by the teacher that's in there, and they still have to, that's one of the tricky things about being a teacher in the programs, because you have to meet like all of those standards, especially like social studies and science standards. You're trying to like give those students like opportunities that other students would get if they were in a regular classroom. But the benefit is that you have them for multiple years, so you can kind of find out some of those things. They're still working through, you know, math, you know, and they're still working through, you know, reading the way that they would be in a regular classroom. It's, you know, there's two teachers, so for math, for instance, like you have like, here's a group that's gonna do this math, here's a group that's gonna work on this. It's not necessarily broken up by grade level, it's more broken up by like, what is this kid working on, what do they need, how do we make them grow a little further. And of course, you have, you know, students with IEPs, they're working on their IEP goals, you know, for math or reading or whatnot. But yeah, there's still, you know, the intention is still to work through.
Any other questions?
So how is a student identified to come to this program? Is it something they can self-identify, or they have to be recommended by staff
Yeah,
or a
that's a
parent
Good
or?
question. Could be any, yeah, this year we worked on a referral process that kind of matches, I would say, yours, like a special ed referral, like anybody could submit a referral, like a teacher, administrator, a parent, and it could come from a kid, like, hey, I want to be Cal. I haven't seen that, but I think it has happened in the past. And so they notify me, we have a student, here's a student that we think would be a good fit for Cal, and we go through like a process where we you know, sign a form for us to share information, and then we just have a meeting and gain as much information as we can about the student, and just so that we have a good idea of like, will this student be a good fit with our current group? Is this actually what's best for the student? And we meet as a group to come to consensus, and if everyone agrees, parents, like sending administrator, receiving administrator, if we all agree, then that is how the student gets placed in the program. If there's we haven't had it yet in my time here, but if there's disagreement, if we can't reach consensus, then that decision can go to the superintendent and decide placement. If there's some sort of disagreement, if a parent was like, no, we don't want this, then they would have the ultimate like say, no, I don't want to get there. So that's that answer right there. But if parents want it, and if there's like disagreement, you know, on the parent, then we have to try to come to consensus, and if we can, ultimately be a superintendent decision.
Any other questions? How is it funded?
So it's funded by Bristol and Jefferson and Noblesboro. Each put money into a common pot of money, I guess, and it's split up evenly between the three schools. So
Evenly by tuition per student?
it's not tuition per student, it's just evenly. So similar to what similar to what Compass and Pathways were, it was funded just like each school pays like a third of the total funding. But you know, that's how it's funded. And at this point, it works out to about, I think it's the cost per student right now is around like $18,000 per student, along those lines, I believe. So if you're gonna look at that, like cost. And right now so there's one student from, last year we had 2 students from Jefferson. This year we have 1. We have another student that's in referral from Jefferson. We have a couple of students from Bristol, and I think there might be another Jefferson student as far as
And so when they get to Lincoln Academy, you think they're mainstreamed with the regular?
Well,
classes?
yeah, I mean, I am not totally familiar with all the different resources that they have at Lincoln Academy for students. I hear different program names, so I'm not certain exactly what all those programs do, but I've been told there's no official alt-ed program for, the official alt-ed program starts for juniors and seniors. I don't know the answer to that, but of like why that is, but I think my guess is they kind of want to get a chance to know the kids and like work with them for a couple of years before they offer up that type of a service. Like that's, that's different from other districts that I've worked in. Camden has a alt-ed program that started as a freshman, Oceanside has a freshman level alt-ed program, Dominic has a, freshman level alt-ed program. I think that's might be this year. But,
Yeah. And so that's one of those things where, and we've been working on it for several years with helping our kids identify the school that they go to. Because, it's a shame where you spend 2 years, you really enjoy this program and you're learning a lot, you're excited to go to school. And then you go to a school that doesn't have a program.
Yeah.
When you could have just gone down the street to a different school.
Yes.
And, and so the dropout rates are, and I hope in the future that we do a much better job tracking. Where our kids go from 8th grade and their graduation rate in these programs and are able to refer them. It's ultimately their choice, but to refer them to the school that's gonna best support them.
Yeah.
Regardless of what type of.
No, I agree. Like we've brought Cal kids, we last year took them to Madomic, and we're gonna do that again this year and just show them some other, there's one student who's one parent went to Madomic, one parent went to Lincoln Academy, so he's a little more open to the idea of going to a school that's, that traditionally most kids are just like in Nobleboro and that side of the district that like go to Lincoln Academy just because geographically it's the closest one, and that's where my parents are. I guess that's where I'll go too. But like we really want kids to like, hey, like check out and see, is this the right fit for you? I used to work in St. George for 9 years, and they have high school choice, and that was a really big part of their 8th grade year was like learning about all of the schools and really breaking down those like historical connections to a school just because you had family go there, and like really like looking through each school through a different lens, and then finding out like asking the schools themselves, like, tell us what you can do for this kid. Like here is our student. Like, how can you best meet their needs? What do you have available for them? I think it's just really important for it's an important process, and that's part of my thinking of like having asking kids to come back as mentors is also to kind of like stoke the fire a little bit. Also, it's like, well, I'm going to invite these kids here and stay connected with them. Good conversations, like find out like what we're going to be, like what and so.
Is Cal part of the Alternative Education Association of Maine?
We're not like officially a part of it, but that's where there's a yearly conference that we've gone to. We didn't go to this, maybe it's gonna be in the spring, but we went last year to that.
Yeah, I see. They're more focused on that second.
Yeah.
But
There's the alt-ed program in Madomic that's run by Josh Carpenter. He's had that up and running. Rivers has had that up and running for a really long time. So he's I've known him through Trekkers actually, so for a little while. So I able to call him and get some ideas. And, it's a good source. So.
well, thank you. Thank you very much for coming out tonight and giving us a better understanding.
Thanks. Yeah. So, and I drive home and stuff.
Okay, moving right on to actions on the minutes for December 4th.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you very much. And then the next regular meeting for the school board will be at Jefferson Village School on February 5th at 6 p.m. The next regularly scheduled AOS board meeting is February 13th at 6 p.m. They're attempting to put together one before that. But I think the date and time doesn't work for most, so we'll figure out that over the next couple of days. AOS report. On the 20th, we had the approval of the AOS budgets. And then moving right into Cat C on the 18th of January from 4 to 7. At right next to Coney is the Cat C building. They'll have a Skills USA open house. And the Cat C program will be showcasing their students' skills for Skills USA competition. And that'll be held at the Main State Conference in mid-March as well. So a great opportunity to go and check out what some of these folks are doing.
What was the date and time on that?
It is January 18th, 4 to 7. And it's in preparation for the Skills USA competition. It's a national competition. And the schools locally, including Cat C, place well. And they do well in those competitions at the state level and place nationally as well. So it's really interesting to see how motivated they are. Some of the things are as simple or as complicated as repairing a wedding cake that is damaged. Like that's one of the competitions. And another one may be, repairing an alternator or whatever other program, repairing paint error in the auto paint shop. So there's a lot of, and then they have some robotics and tech stuff as well. The superintendent's report.
So Lindsay can't be here today. She's sick, unfortunately. So I will do my best for her. First, she would like me to share the NUIA information that you have after the minutes in the packet. So if you remember, I think it was November that I shared the NUIA data from spring of 23. So you have that and you've heard that whole spiel, so I won't repeat that. So this one's a much shorter one because in the fall and the winter, we do the diagnostic. So that's the RIT score is what everybody calls that one. And again, I've defined RIT for you up there. It is RASH unit is what it stands for. And it measures levels of academic difficulty. And I gave you also a little picture there of the main 3-year model, just so you can see. I like the visual there, so that you can see in fall, the only score you get is that RIT score. You're just doing the diagnostic, which makes sense because you don't want to compare that to the previous spring score, because that's the end of the year. When kids take that in the spring, so say they're in 3rd grade, that would be their end of the year mark for how they did in 3rd grade. And it's on the 3rd grade standards, that 4-digit score. That's the summative one. And then you also get the diagnostic, and that one's nationally normed, so it's not on the main standards. So the fall one that you have here is just the diagnostic. And that's the schedule for the year. So you have the table for RIT scores for reading first. And remember that the scale is different than that 4-digit number. So the yellow and green and blue are average, high average, and high scores. And you have the breakdown there by grade level. And then the one I like to look at is just the grades 3 through 8 stacked column, because that shows you overall the school. And really the table's just there in case you have a trouble reading the tiny numbers on the bars. So that's function. And then on the next page, you have the math scores, and it's the same thing. You have the table of the percentages in case the digits are hard to read on the stacked column graph. And then you have the scale down below, so you can see how kids are doing.
Is it possible to get a comparison on how the individual classes are, so how the class scored in 3rd grade and then that same class in 4th grade?
Yeah, we have that for you. I made a 3-year one last year. That was just spring, but I'm not sure I have the fall scores from 3 years ago because they don't archive them long-term, but I can look on that. But yeah, if you look at the CNA data, That's the spring data. And that, I'm thinking through, is that the RIT score? Not really.
And then
Not really. You can look at it. So for the past 3 years, you can look at those together because those are the same assessment. This is a new assessment. So really the first time that that spring score of 23 that I showed you in November is going to be useful to you is this spring. Then you can look spring to spring. Otherwise it is a shift, and you can go back and get the RIT score for kids. And the state is saying that the RIT score can be looked at over time. Sort of
and then there was,
close.
The, percentage of students who met the growth of Jefferson. Can we get that?
I can give you that data for when do you want it for?
Well, probably 2 meetings from now.
No, I mean, like, which years are you wanting to look at it? Do you want to look at like this year's growth goals, last year's growth
yes.
goals?
It's this year's growth goals and what percentage met those growth goals.
Okay. Fall growth goals, and you want that in reading and math?
Yes.
All right, I'll have to look and see what I can pull from the site. Growth goals is one of the things, it's one of the flaws. They would like it to show more growth, so I'm not sure what they have in there. I feel like that's why I didn't pull it last time, but let me look.
And I think it's also challenging because now it's meeting expectations, not meeting the standard. And I haven't met anyone who's been able to explain to me what expectations are yet.
You mean meeting the state expectations? All right, I can give you a little one. So basically, they had a committee of people that were volunteers that met over the summer last year. And that long pause where we didn't get scores, where those people chose the priority standards for that 4-digit score. It's going to be hard to see growth on that 4-digit score because you only see it once a year. That's only in the spring test. So those expectations are what they chose, and they will revisit them. They've always done that for NUIA. They go back and look at test questions and find out, did the question really measure what they expected it would measure? And sometimes test questions just don't perform the way they thought. And kids all have the same misconception. There's something wrong with the question.
Yes.
And then they redo the question. So it's not perfect, but yeah. That's who came up with the expectations is that committee. And they are different expectations than we've had before on the 4-digit score.
But I think across the board, it's demonstrated that the educators, the amount of time and effort that they put into, making up with learning loss and really putting their heart and soul into getting these kids to where they need to be. So,
Yeah.
I can't say enough how much I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think they've done a fine job of choosing their priorities well. I think you start with reading, writing, and math. So that's the NUIA data, and you already had your nutrition review last month, correct?
Yes, briefly.
And that's all she had for her report was for me to do that and to check in on that.
Okay, moving right into facilities.
So we had a little bit of damage, not from this last storm, but the one previous, we lost one of the dugouts. The one dugout we had remaining. So we are working up a quote to get the dugout rebuilt, and we're gonna try to run that through the insurance to get those fixed. Buses, bus 7 is in Kennebunk. It's had a warranty item, so it went down there. Had 2 recalls on the warranty. They come up and picked it up, so they're fixing that. We have 1 bus down in Warren that's having the auxiliary heater repaired. The other buses are all in service and on the road. The new bus will be coming next week. It's in, they install the cameras. They're lettering it and getting it ready to go, and it should be up here next week. That bus will be renamed Bus 2. So that will be here next week.
And bus 6 was the one that was,
Bus 6 is the one that's in Warren. Being repaired. Bus 5 was the bus that was totaled.
okay. Thank you very much.
And this bus is currently in the budget, right?
This bus is the insurance checks. The one coming next week.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one the insurance is paying for.
It is.
So the insurance money has come to the town, they have the check. So they need to write us a check or write a check to Cressy's for $107,000 and change.
And that's moving right into the next thing in old business, which is we need a motion to authorize the purchase of the bus number 2 with the insurance money to replace bus number 5, which was totaled.
We have a bus in here to buy this year.
No,
We did, okay.
because it's a insurance replacement.
It was, oh, that's right, because
The next bus due would be bus 6, and that's currently at 120.
bus 5 originally was going to apply for this.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah,
Right.
So this is bus
yeah. So
2,
they gave us an
Bus,
accept
new bus 2,
to apply,
Which we did.
new bus
but they
2.
didn't approve. the
new bus 2
acceptance.
will be purchased.
Didn't that motion on here or not?
No.
Oh,
with
No,
the
we
insurance.
added that to the agenda. So the motion is to authorize the purchase of the new bus 2,
Yes,
using
with
the insurance check. Okay.
You make that motion?
so moved, yep.
Okay.
Second. And I believe that money's already been deposited into the long-term bus account. Right.
Yeah, yeah, they already have, they have the check, whether or not it's deposited.
Yeah, they've had the check for like a week.
Yeah.
I don't know if they've deposited it
So-
yet or not, but
Maybe we should add clarification, the insurance money that was deposited into the long-term school maintenance account. That way people will understand.
Well, no, it's not long-term maintenance.
I
it's
mean,
bus
the
fund.
school
Bus
bus
account.
account, yeah, sorry. That way people can understand how it flowed in and now it's gonna flow out.
Okay, so it's authorized to purchase new bus 2 using the insurance with the deposited that was
Bus.
deposited into the school bus fund account.
Yes,
Okay,
thank you.
yes.
All in favor? Thank you very much. And then the next piece.
Did he second that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is the discussion of this future special education program needs. So as we move away from the shared programs of what? Oh, did I? Oh, sorry.
It was all good. No, I want to hear.
Yeah, sorry. Let's go back to the principal report.
Just went on buses.
All right, starting off with general events, shared today that the girls have won their first game this year and they're super excited. So congratulations to the girls team. We're really pleased that we have a boys A and a B team and a girls team. So all students who wanted to participate and compete this year have been able to do that. And they're having a really great time and they're gaining skills and improving every week. So it's great job for them. Some things back to sounds like traditional norms with kindergarten students singing holiday songs at Jefferson Green and the Lincoln home. So it's nice that they were able to go do that. Some of you might have attended the holiday lunch this year in the cafeteria with your students. So that took place. 8th graders toured Lincoln Academy and kind of dovetail some of the conversation from Adam. They will be visiting a lot of the different area high schools in the coming months. Andy Bartlett's kind of spearheading a lot of that work and communicating to different schools. And we're also having students and faculty from other schools come to us and talk about, you know, what can they offer. And so that students can really make good informed decisions about where they'd like to attend next year. So that's all in the works. And we kind of had a parent meeting on that earlier this fall, so parents could kind of, hear that those things are gonna be offered and to reach out to Andy, and he's been doing a lot of communication with that this year. Music concerts, I hope that parents of you guys are able to attend our music concerts. They were really, well attended. Students had a great time, and we had artwork displayed. Just kind of following up with the last time was school counselor, and what does a school counselor do in terms of programming and supporting students in their education here, K-8. This principal's report, I asked Rachel Richmond, an art teacher here, and Molly Kay, the music teacher, to kind of submit to you what their programming looks like here at Jefferson. And they've outlined, yes, their standards based and what they teach in their specific content, but also I was hoping that you would get from this is that their content really helps support the other content here at the school. And Rachel was giving great examples of some things that they might be doing in social studies. They can tie in with their art projects and really make those cross standards really come to life. And it's, I think it's more enriching. I think the students really remember it, and it makes it more powerful. So using art to do that, like I said, not only for art standards in itself, but also supporting the other curriculum areas, and the same thing with music. Just talking about the different opportunities that students have here, K-8 in the music programming, and again, how it also supports the learning that's happening in the regular classroom. If you have any questions about those write-ups, but I think they provide you some great examples of what they do and how they support students and their broad educational program here at the school. And in terms of hiring, we've definitely made some gains this year. As you know, we've added the kitchen manager, the technology coordinator and integrator, and now we also have filled the other administrative assistant position with Wendy Crawford. So we're getting there. We still have some special education needs to fill, and we continue to work on that. So, if you have any questions?
Drop of 12 students,
I'm sorry.
a drop of 12 students in the
We
population.
have had a lot of students. I move out of the district or prefer to be homeschool at the time. So
You know, any idea, indication how many decided to homeschool or that still live in town but chose some other
yeah,
evidence
we do have, let's say, 4 students.
for this past month that
Yeah.
changed?
Yeah. Homeschool and 2 at this school. Oh, maybe that would just start, yeah.
And then I'd like to give a shout out to the music program, the music concert. Molly Kay and Chase really worked together, and the sound quality at this concert has been better than ever before, and you could hear the music, you could hear the quietest kid. It was really,
Yeah, the
really,
new sound
yeah,
system,
yeah,
that was really helpful, and also doing the streaming if you were.
yes,
Yeah,
and then
so
doing
it's-
the streaming, I've heard people say, you know, my grandparents watched
Yeah.
it in Pittsburgh.
Right, and I
so
think that was
that's
really
that's
great
awesome.
too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so moving into old business, the discussion of the future special education program needs with pathways and compass being eliminated, and those programs going back to the individual schools. We're fortunate enough that we have compass, we have pathways. And so, you know, we're halfway there to begin with. There are a couple of different options that we can consider or should look at. You know, one being, you know, do we share services with another school? Like Noblesboro, for an example. I think as I've looked at that, I think it's probably in our best interest to provide all of the services in-house for ourselves. But I did have a bunch of questions with with what are the requirements for the behavioral health program. And then, you know, what are some of the wants and desires as well. And so, for an example is, facility needs. We talked a lot about, what the teacher staff would look like. But what improvements do we need to do onto the facility? And in what time frame do we need to look at doing that? And, you know, can we operate the program safely without doing those modifications, or I don't want to say improvements, but where all that stands legally.
Sure. I'm not really aware of any legalities around having a seclusion room. I think that's one of the areas when you have a behavior program in your building, you need a seclusion room, but I know Janet has had a lot of experience, and Laura and Darcy this year in this building where a seclusion room would have come in extremely handy. So I think that if we're going to be building a behavior program here and it's needed, and we have a lot of students who require that kind of programming, so at least one seclusion room connected somewhere nearby that behavior classroom would be appropriate. There's no, you know, there's not really any legalities around it, but it's meeting the needs that are identified in a student IEP. They're all individualized, having a certified teacher, obviously.
Appropriate trained staff.
Yeah, we want to
Yeah.
provide a
Yeah.
safe,
Right,
free
Right.
learning environment.
Yeah.
But I wanted to make sure that myself, I was
Good
crystal
question.
clear in what
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
actual requirements are.
sure.
Because I'd heard in a couple of different places, like, you know, their seclusion room doesn't meet the standard. And so
Right.
it's like, well,
Okay,
how
yes,
does it not meet the standard if they're running a program?
sure. Yep.
And
the
then
D-
what, yeah,
Yeah, so I can answer that. So the DOE, I believe, has a specific description of what a seclusion room is supposed to consist of, the size, the materials. I don't know a lot about it, but like whether there should be a window in the door, I think, so you can look in on a student and make sure they're safe. So I know we've used the bubble room sort of as a seclusion room. We call it the bubble room, sort of. It's not really, it's not set up the way the DOE would
Yes.
say it's not in compliance right now. So, the slant in the wall, I believe, is sort of the issue there. But there's a certain, we can look it up. I guess I was under the impression that maybe
Yeah.
John. had-
our facilities guy
Yes.
is 100%.
I thought he
on-
already had,
Yeah.
yes.
On what the
Yeah.
construction needs are.
Yeah,
Uh,
yes.
but I wanted to make sure that we were meeting whatever the legal obligation is, whatever the obligation is to best provide services for our kiddos. Yeah, so there's, one of the things that the folks here, the administrators and the educators have been able to do extremely well is as the school grows, you know, we've utilized all the space from day one when the school was built. But that meant that, you know, an OT specialist who has 2 kids had their own room. Now they don't anymore. Now they're utilizing shared space and, you know, we're not using classrooms as storage closets anymore. We have the space available to utilize. We're getting really close to the limits of the spaces. But I think for this particular project, we have the space where we can do it. But it's going to require an additional construction project, which will actually move us into the the next piece as well. Does anyone have any questions about? Or any questions or any comments like, we really should look at sticking with Bristol and trying to make this thing work, or is it something that we want to do independently now, or do we have joint conversations with Noblesboro in the future about possibly providing the behavioral health program while we provide the life skills programs? How would you like to see that work?
So what's the student to teacher ratio in that program? Or what's it supposed to be?
Sure. It depends on the ages of the students, so it could vary from year to year, but I believe in K through. Gee, I wish I knew this was a question ahead of time, but I think like K through 3, it's like 7 kids to 1 adult if they're in the special ed setting altogether. And I think as kids get older, you can do 10 kids with 1 adult. A behavior program is not typically like self-contained. So our goal is to always have those kids going out to the regular ed setting still, but with supports, they might come to the behavior room for social skills lessons, or because they're having a difficult time, they may come to the behavior room for a half hour to calm down, or they might take a break or get a reward. So they're not typically, most of our students will still go out to their regular ed classes for a good chunk of their day. So we wouldn't, it's hard to do the student to adult ratio. Some of the students might need an ed tech with them at times until they can learn some skills and be more independent. While other kids might not need an ed tech at all, but they might just need to come down there and receive some services from that special ed teacher.
Yeah, and the behavioral program has different levels as well. We talk about out of district placements, and so we won't ever be able to provide the services in-house, which won't require an out of district placement.
Right.
We'll still have those requirements. But it's how can we provide the best services for the majority of folks, and keep as many in-house as possible.
And so how many do we have in the program, say this year or next year, would be in that program?
Janet, Laura, and I, and Darcy have been kind of looking at numbers for next year, and as an estimate, we are predicting around about 6 or 7 students who could benefit from that behavior program.
And we currently have 3 in Compass.
Currently have 3 in Compass.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so when you say compliance with the seclusion, it's not necessarily compliance, because DOE only has, basically, it's a recommendation that you have to have a seclusion room. It's not a requirement.
They have a standard.
They have a standard.
Yeah.
If you choose to build the room, but you're not required to build the room, is that what you're basically saying?
Well, the school is required to educate students on a full day. And if you don't have a seclusion room or an area to keep your students safe, it's really tough to keep them in school all school day. So what happens is we might have to send those kids home because they're unsafe, and then you're in trouble legally for other reasons. So it's really in the best interest of our school and our students to have a safe area to keep them secluded and safe in until they can calm down and then regroup in their classroom and their education.
Yeah, so they have a they have a very defined standard of construction.
Yes.
They have a lot of pretty heavy recommendations, and then there's also, what's in the best interest of students, and it's in the best interest of students to keep them as safe as possible,
Right.
and so, but the DOE doesn't say you are required to provide this standard. It's one of those, gray areas that there are so many. And so with that, any other questions? Okay, yeah, so with that, if we're gonna start our program at the beginning of next year, we really need to have the facility ready to start the program at the beginning of next year. With the increase that we already see in the AOS budget, with the potential increases that we already see in our budget, I think it is in our best interest to consider tonight moving money from the long-term maintenance, moving $100,000 from the long-term maintenance into a fund, whether it's in the general fund set up for a particular project or in the fund for the particular project. But that way we can have that funding readily available so that we can start construction projects on it immediately and order the stuff that we need in order to have the facility ready at the beginning of the year when we start the program.
And so I assume you've done all this legwork and have a estimate.
We do not have a firm estimate yet. They're still working on some prices because of the matting. The matting is a specialty item and some of it's like 12 to 15 week lead time. The door is a special order item and can take up to probably the same amount of time, the hardware in the door. It involves a sprinkler system, the HVAC system, lighting. It's pretty intense project for a small room.
And you've identified the location where this would,
We've identified a couple locations
Yeah.
where it could go, yeah.
Yeah, so where the behavioral program would go, and then where in that classroom, this particular room would be, and then we've recently talked about an additional space because we have, potentially 6, 7 kids in this program.
The 3 that are down in Bristol right now? Or is that in addition to?
Yeah,
Well, it's a prediction of what we'll have for students next school year.
yeah, so some might.
Yeah.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
some might
People
move on.
some people move out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Projection, we do our best to
Yeah.
predict.
And one of the things that was identified recently is there is another space that's in the building that won't meet the requirements of a seclusion room. But it's a room that we're currently using, and with some slight modifications at the same time that we're doing the construction project, we could really enhance the quality of that room for a few extra $1,000. And so my recommendation would be to do both spaces at the same time. One will meet all of the requirements. The other one will just be a safer environment for kids to be in.
and so your estimate is 100,000 to do this renovation work.
I'm hoping it'll be a lot less than that,
Yeah,
Shouldn't be
Yes,
more
I
than
think
that.
so.
yeah.
And so did you talk to Lynn about that long-term school maintenance?
yes, yeah. So in order to, which we're actually have perfect timing, because in order to move money out of the long-term maintenance fund, the way that it was established when it was established is that it requires a town vote. We need to have the request in by the 15th of January. And so we got 4 days to make it happen.
15th of January, I don't even have to have my nomination papers until the 15th of February.
I know.
Well, mine was
Yeah.
last year, you
Yeah.
might wanna check
Well,
that,
no, it's because they have to put it on the ballot.
you might wanna check that.
Well, I have to go on the ballot.
Yeah.
Wayne, you might wanna check if they were on ballot
Okey-doke.
last year too.
So basically we need an article
Yes,
for the town meeting requesting to
Withdraw and deposit into a separate account.
well, no, I think you would just word the article something along the lines of shall the town move
yeah,
$100,000 from the long-term school maintenance fund for
Expenditures
Special-
related. to
special ed,
Special.
ex-
expenditure, construction project,
special
yeah,
ed construction
Yeah.
project, there you go.
Yeah.
I don't know if you was able to sort that out or not, Tara, but
Got it. Yep. Do you want to hear it?
sure.
Article for town meeting, shall the town approve $100,000 from the reserve account for special ed construction project?
Yes, that would be the long-term school maintenance account.
Okay,
and then with that, we'll continue doing what we have been doing over the last several years with the budget is moving as much money into that account, for future projects as well. The real reason why we need to do this now is, one, the added expenses of this year's budget, and then two, is we need to start the construction project, where if we wait until we get our, audit back and we know to carry forward, and if that, if that money is available, it'll be November.
Well, even if you
Yeah.
put it in next year's budget, you wouldn't get it approved till the middle of June.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
that's Not enough time.
No, and then,
What is in the long-term maintenance?
I don't know.
What?
They're,
I
they're a
think it
million, I
was,
think.
yeah, I think it was about 600,000 in there, right?
793,000,
How many?
793.
Okay, yeah, awesome,
Plus some interest for this.
Plus
year,
interest,
so.
yeah. So good job for you guys. Putting $793,000 in it, so.
Well,
What's it earning?
I mean, if it works out, maybe we can put it back in there.
Yeah, I think,
In the budget process.
yeah, I think we will be able to, and if we're not able to put it all in there this year, we will next year as well, and so, and hopefully that will be like the bus reserve where, we take money out to purchase something and then we put money back in so that, when we do need a $800,000-900,000 project, we still have that money in there.
And so did Andy second that motion?
Yes. Now,
did you, yeah, all right, you're first.
And so that'll make the behavior program self-contained in Jefferson. It won't be shared, but it will be just Jefferson.
Right.
Students.
Yeah, because my overall concern is I think we could probably wing it, for a lack of a better term, for the next couple of years, but then the project ends up just costing more money 2 years from now. And so, if we establish a good program here, we have complete control of it, and then we provide, the best services we can for in-house for the Jefferson community.
Plus you've eliminated all that transportation.
Right.
Yeah, and the transportation is gonna huge, yeah, it's gonna huge. Yes, and with Noble World, they don't provide their own transportation, so that's another, it will be, there are a lot of complications in order to combine.
So, just if numbers change or numbers of students change, there's always the ability for Jefferson to agree to accept a student to tuition in where another district sends them here and
I'm
pays
in favor of that.
tuitions. And Jefferson takes the tuition to educate that student, so.
Yeah, I think one of the things that, and you mentioned later is, the cost share formula through the AOS has been,
Right.
questionable at best, and so looking at those and seeing where we're at and how we can best utilize the resources that are available, and in some case, those shared resources are a great idea.
Right.
But they need to benefit Jefferson,
Right.
ultimately.
So how many kids can the space that you're looking at hold?
As far as the classroom
So
itself,
if we have 6 to 7 next year, like if we increase to 12.
Yeah.
it's the space,
Yeah.
it's an adequate space.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a typical classroom. So,
So,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And then each individual staff, it's based on,
Yeah.
you know, their
Yeah.
plan, so it could be very complicated very quickly, or just something
But I
simple
think
added where,
that it was an actual classroom.
yeah, yeah. All in favor? Thank you very much. Okay, and then the next piece is, when we started Strategic Vision 25, each of the schools, each of the communities, and the AOS committee all agreed to equally share the legal representation between the AOS committee, GSB, and the 7 towns. And so originally what we were doing is trying to figure out how to best utilize the resources that we had, and by combining these legal representation, we all didn't have to ask the same question 7, 8, 9 times.
Sure.
I think Jefferson is at the point now where we're not asking the same questions. GSB is considering reducing their secondary boards, and so they have a lot of legal questions still that they need answered. Bristol and South Bristol are talking about a potential RSU. They have a lot of legal questions that they have remaining as well. We'll have some questions about the ESC, but I think in the long run, it would be in our best interest to just pay for those legal services, whatever the services that we're using, versus sharing the expense to pay for all of the legal service that the consolidated AOS boards are using. So I'd like to make a motion to withdraw from the agreement to equally share legal representation with the AOS committee, the GSB committee, and the 7 town committees in support of Strategic Vision 25.
So moved.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Any questions, concerns, comments?
Is it gonna save us money?
Yes, because what will happen is, right now, whatever legal questions are whatever time is being used from the lawyers, it's being split up amongst all of us. Regardless if that question is about Jefferson, or that question is just a general question about South Bristol. By us withdrawing, what will happen is, when we need legal representation, which will probably need a couple of hours over the next several months, we'll pay those couple of hours, and we won't share that expense with the rest of the AOS. But we won't share their expenses.
Right.
Just a little gamble.
Not if you consider how much they're gonna use the lawyer compared to how much we're gonna use.
Yeah,
the lawyer.
True.
yeah, we're not gonna use, the amount of questions that we have are minimal, because we already have we're established. They still have a lot of unknowns, and then the legal process in order to do so. So that lawyer is going to have to write the plan and for GSB and those supporting towns, and write the plan for Bristol and South Bristol. And then after all of those plans are written and the committees are out doing their thing, and then they vote on whatever they decide to do. I mean, they have a long road still to go to make things happen.
Have we paid for any of these legal fees
Yes,
already?
yeah.
For the 10 grand front?
Like, are we still covered for any amount of time?
No, I think we probably spent $7,000 or $8,000 already. Doing a rough estimate on what we've signed on the warrants. And so, but we don't need to spend any. All in favor? Thank you very much.
Would it be okay, do I have your permission to turn off the recording for a moment?
Yes. Okay. And then moving on, so, here is an action to authorize the board chair to send formal communication to the AOS board. And what that is the current IT position, that we have, there have been some.
Here,
No, for the AOS.
Yeah, okay.
So, the first piece is adding the director of IT.
Mhm.
And, that is not in line with the interlocal agreements. Clearly, in chapter 6, the powers, authority and responsibility. It lists out all of those specific, director positions. And they're all there to meet a legal obligation. It's the curriculum, the special education piece, the food service piece. They all have, it's reports that are legally required to be done, which this position doesn't. And so in order to create the position, we need to adjust or alter the interlocal agreements. And so I want to send a letter through Drumson and Woodsum explaining that to the AOS board. The second piece is, as we've looked into that position and the current position that is there to help support the services at the central office, there have been several cost share questions that we need to figure out and get a much better idea on. And so, one of the things tonight I'll request from the superintendent is a breakdown of all of the cost shares and how we currently do that, whether it's through Cal or so all of the programs, everything that we do. Long story short, on this particular position, somewhere along the line, no one can figure it out where it came from, but for the last 14 years, GSB has not paid a dime towards this position. And the breakdown has been the other supporting schools, where that's obviously an error and that needs to be fixed. And we're in the process now of fixing that. And so, you know, I think it's a pretty easy fix. It's obvious that that wasn't the intent, and it's definitely, again, based off the interlocal agreements. The AOS board has the ability to change the cost share formula with a 3/4 of the full weighted board's approval, and that never happened. And so how it came to that or why, who knows? The question is, let's just fix it and move on. But I'd like to also include that in the letter as well to explain what the current situation is so that we can move forward and just get back on track.
So moved.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Awesome. Any other discussion or questions? All in favor? Thank you very much. And then, moving on to the policy approvals for the first read. If we can move that first read into
So
second.
moved.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Thank you very much. And then the second read of GCI, GCOA, GCOC, GCSA, and GCSAR.
So move.
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
You guys didn't have any big
No,
controversies.
Did you want to hear her notes on that one?
Yes, please.
Okay, so for the two computer use ones, there was an option 1 or an option 2. The only feedback that she got was the option 2 one, which was to allow staff limited personal use of devices that don't conflict with expectations or standards.
That's what we chose.
Yes.
That's the one you're choosing. Yep. That's it for that section.
I did have a question on the evaluation of administrative staff. Let me get to that. It was a, it talks about the school unit will develop and pilot a performance evaluation and growth system, the PEPG, consistent with the requirements of law from the Department of Education rules, and fully implement it. Just checking to see if that's something that we've already done or something that we need to do in the near future.
For the administrators or for the supervision of staff?
Yeah.
That one is,
Yeah.
are you on the evaluation of administrative staff or the supervision and evaluation
It
of
actually
professional
says it
staff?
on both. It's in accordance with the Maine's educated efficiency law. And it says that, you know, we will develop and pilot this program.
Yeah, you have a steering committee that does the staff one.
Yeah.
And that's all up to date, and they've had their annual meeting already this year. I think they're gonna meet 2 or 3 more times. And they just check in and make sure, you know, is anybody recommending any changes? So that one's all up to date. And the evaluation of administrative staff, we follow, there's a district one that we follow. And you set goals and then your supervisor approves those goals. So it's similar, but not quite the same.
Yeah.
And then we have to pass it into a regional committee and they look at it and decide whether or not you've done what you're supposed to do. Or not, send you back,
And the rest of them.
connected to your certification. Yep.
Any other questions or all in favor? Thank you very much.
And I do have notes on the next ones too, if you're ready for that.
Yes,
So both of them are required for the McKinney-Vento review. So the state sent out a review last year. And Kelly and I worked on that together, and basically they just look at your whole, you know, what you're offering and how are you keeping your data and all that, how are you using any funds that they give us. And the only, and these are required with that review. It's the last thing that we have to do to meet all of the expectations for the McKinney-Vento review. And the only thing that's changed on there is there's a statement there that says students awaiting foster care placement. And now that's taken out of the policy because DHHS procedures already cover that. That's the only change, and those are required for that, but
yeah, if we can table those for this month and put them on the second read next
Yep.
month, then
Do we currently have these policies and she's just looking to update that change?
yes, I found these in your, those are on the drive already.
or actually, have you guys looked at these policies?
I don't know. Who gave
Yeah.
those ones.
Okay, yeah,
Okay,
so we'll just wait
so
until-
in your shared drive under policy work, in second read. Oh, no, that's only is the section before.
Yeah,
Okay, so these need to be added there too. And then your other first read folder, I don't see for this month, so I think that needs to be added, and we'll put that in tomorrow.
yes, and so with that, so back up. There is the rejected policies, so taking these second read and the rejected policies and putting them back into the queue at whatever level they need to be at.
Sure.
For next month, and so that we can clean up all of those policies as well. I think one of them we need to put in a dollar figure for, and then just be able to look at these two policies as well.
So can we
Yeah.
move these to first read and she'll put them in our thing and then, because it seems like these are gonna be quick minor adjustment, and then we could approve them next month at the second read.
Yeah, wherever they are in the queue, so wherever Lindsay
Okay.
needs them to be. And then.
And then on the ones that you already have on first read that you'll see in there, when that's loaded in for you, there's two that she had comments on. The one is the expense authorization and reimbursement form. That one's for federal funding. That's a requirement now that schools have a form that basically it documents your travel expenses. So if somebody goes to a conference and they want us to follow that form and then have a separate form for staff to fill out. So that's what that one is. And then the wellness policies, because you just had the nutrition review, and that's one of the requirements from that review, and to keep current. And the wellness team I met with last month, and they took a look at the policy as well. So when you get to the second read, they're going to have some ideas for you next month that they thought might be added.
Okay, and then, we will not have any action after this, but we'll move into executive session to, discuss the negotiations with support staff and professional staff pursuant to 1 MSRA 4560.
So move. I'll second that.
And April? At 7:36. Thank you very much for coming tonight.